I can't find anything about these 3 cults in this book. That's right, there's a reason for that. Because these aren't pieces of folklore or conspiracy theories, no. On today's episode, we're diving into 3 cults. 3 cults that operate in Australia and are still operating today. I love diving into conspiracy theories and trying to find out what actually gives these theories legs outside of conspiracy theories and true crime events. I love diving into cryptids and the paranormal and anything that comes from a darker realm, darker niche of Australia, we cover it here. Now, before we dive into these 3 cults that are still active in Australia, kick back, relax, and grab yourself a drink. On the menu for me tonight, a nice Pepsi Max. For any newcomers, welcome to the channel. I hope you find something here that you like. And for any regulars, let's get it, team. Let's go after it. The first cult on this list that we're tackling today is Kenja Communication. So Kenja Communication was founded in 1982 by a man named Ken Dyers and a woman named Jan Hamilton. Ken and Jan. Kenja Communication. Now, Ken was a former Qantas pilot, but he had aspirations much larger than just flying commercial aircrafts his entire life. You see, the thing with Ken is he wanted more. He was extremely big into self-development, and he always wanted to start his own business. He always wanted to dive into this form of work. And that's where Jan comes into it, because Jan, who was Ken's partner, she had previously garnered experience in the self-development area. She had partaken in courses, and she had actually run self-development courses as well. So when her and Ken met, it was the perfect match. So at the start of Kenja Communications, the group presented itself as a personal development system, and they would focus on communication training, emotional awareness, while prioritizing creativity and focus through their teachings. Now, it needs to be stated, team, that Kenja was incepted in the 70s and the 80s, so this was when there was a huge boom in the self-development movement. And Kenja, they were in the playing field, claiming that their methods could help improve relationships while enhancing mental clarity and increase personal success.
I've got rid of a lot of that stuff that says I'm less than I am.
So at the moment, it sounds pretty good, and back then they didn't have 30-minute edits on YouTube that would leave you absolutely motivated as hell. They didn't exist yet. So from 1980 to 1990, Kenja had expanded through a wide variety of different avenues, including paid seminars to communication courses, performance workshops, and theatre programs. Now, it needs to be noted, the theatre work that Kenja was partaking in was an extremely big recruitment tool that they would use. You see, Kenja was linking their theatre work to youth programs known as Kenja Kids. But as the organisation started to grow, more and more whispers started to take place. Whispers from members, whispers of wrongdoing within the walls of Kenja Communication. You see, an ex-member of Kenja came forward named Michelle Ring. Now, Michelle submitted a testimony to a federal parliamentary committee stating that at the age of 15, she was recruited by Kenja Communications. And Michelle came forward and said she believes that she was groomed by Jan Hamilton. She also came forward stating that she was emotionally abused by Jan Hamilton. She also states that she was emotionally abused and essayed by Ken Dyers, another ex-member who came forward who wanted to run with a pseudonym named XC, also backed up the claims that came from Michelle.
Overwhelm you with it because I can use more energy than you.
XC came forward alleging similar abuse at the hands of Ken Dyers, and at that time, XC, she was only 14 years old. Now, when XC came forward, she also stated that other members of Kenja Communication would actually aid Ken in these lewd acts.
Well, I'd say it's a kind of like a people farm.
Yeah, but everything's a con.
Whether he really overshot the boundaries is, I guess he did.
Then a long-term member of the group named Bevan Hudson actually came forward as well. Bevan would describe Ken as a classic cult-type leader, and Bevan came forward and said that Ken would gather people together and then begin alienating them. He would alienate people to the outside world while profiting socially and economically.
It depends on how you look at it. You can say football's a cult. What's the difference? What's a cult?
Now, it's important to note that Ken Dyers in 1990 did face SA charges, but they were acquitted at trial. Now, in lieu with that, a later conviction of indecent assault was also overturned on appeal.
I'm not going to defend myself against garbage. I might have to prove that to God, but I don't have to prove that to anybody else.
All of those were related to Ken Dyers. Now, at the same time all of this was starting to come to the surface, Ken Dyers had actually died by a self-inflicted gunshot wound in 2007. So Ken had died without a standing conviction. In one of my last videos, somebody made a comment where they went, "Oh, you can see where he's scripting, or it sounds robotic at times." Yeah, listen, your boy ain't trying to get sued here. I've already received a cease and desist from other content, so when it's time to stick to actual court documentation and the way that it was presented in court, yeah, every now and again I'm going to make sure that my wording is 100% bang on. I don't have the money to fight a lawsuit. I mean, yes I do, yeah I do. If anyone's watching this, I'm loaded. So what happened to Jan Hamilton? Well, Jan Hamilton still runs Kenja Communications today, main leader and spokesperson of the organisation today, while rejecting the cult ties associated with the group. You may have heard of this next one. If you're around the New South Wales area, you've definitely heard of this one. Universal Medicine. Universal Medicine, or UniMed as it's more commonly coined, is an esoteric healing organisation that was founded in 1999 by a former tennis coach named Serge Benhayon. We're going to refer to him as Serge. So this organisation, it was founded in New South Wales. It was founded around Lismore and the further Northern Rivers region area. So UniMed sells workshops and courses and publications, along with healing modalities. Sounds pretty neat, right? Well, UniMed's also been described by critics, journalists and courts to push the belief system that disabilities are a form of karma for past atrocities.
All autistic people are incarnate of former authority abuse and powerful abuse over others, as are Down syndrome, as are spastic or any other disabled child.
While also doubling down by pertaining that SA is a form of karma handed down by spiritual cause and effect from past life atrocities. So let's dig into this one.
He believes that he holds the salvation of the world.
When you go into evolutionary energy, you realize the world's not human anymore. That's when you see spirits.
So before starting UniMed, Serge was a junior tennis coach in New South Wales. Now it might seem like a bit of a reach here, but Serge's past career, coaching people how to play tennis, it did actually directly link to Serge's future endeavours. Because seriously, although he stopped teaching people how to master the art of the backhand, he started teaching people how to master the art of their own life. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Marcus, how is it that a tennis coach, coaching junior tennis, managed to create universal medicine? What is it that changed in him? What is it that flipped the script? Now look, a turning point did occur that influenced Serge to hang up the volleys and pick up the robes. Now that turning point did come to Serge through an energetic impress. You see, in Serge's teaching, an energetic impress is a message that comes directly to you that is handed down by the greater powers that be. Serge believes that an external higher source can impress on you. It can deliver you a message. And he believes he received that message. So after this energetic impress, Serge believed that he had complete clarity on human life and illness. And it's extremely important to note that this didn't come to him through teachings and it didn't come to him over time. No, he had this awakening right away. For Serge, this was less about learning and more a direct insight.
Universal Medicine suggests that their leader, Serge Benhayon, is the most knowledgeable person that has ever existed.
He was the chosen one.
He is the one.
So Serge and his wife Deborah, they started hosting healing sessions, lifestyle coaching seminars, while also giving healing advice, whilst also selling books and selling other workshops. Because as a lot of us know, medicine is a business. And business was good. Now, as UniMed started to grow, the organisation, they started to train and teach their followers to become therapists and healers and start running the workshops. These are a way that Serge's teachings could be spread further and further without him needing to be directly boots on the ground. And these exact methods are one of the reasons why UniMed actually spread throughout Europe and the United Kingdom. Now, this might be one of the parts where people that are across UniMed or people around the New South Wales area have heard of UniMed before, because you see, UniMed grew at such a substantial rate, to the point where now some healthcare professionals were actually directly linked to the organisation. So some healthcare professionals would actually refer their patients to Serge and Serge's teachings.
If he tries one of his healing modalities and it doesn't work, the fault is not his. The fault is the person who doesn't receive it or believe it.
There was actually a New South Wales physician that had permanent practice restrictions imposed on him because he sent multiple people to Unimed practitioners without enough evidence to actually indicate what they were going through and what would actually help them. So this physician didn't actually know what these poor people actually needed to be treated with, but he would just chalk it up to, well, send them to Unimed. We're going to send them to Unimed. Let's send as many people as we can to Unimed. So if you can't tell at this point, this belief system, it actually had a fair bit of pull. So let's get behind the doors of this spiritual medical treatment organisation and find out what actually occurred behind the walls of Unimed. So universal medicine would focus on the belief system that illness is not random. So Serge was teaching people that illness was a direct karmic result from your past life. Now right away, this belief system raised some serious concerns because there were members of universal medicine, and those members, they actually worked in the disability services. Critics feared that this form of teaching could reflect how a demographic is seen. Not just seen, but how they could have been treated by members of universal medicine. Does that make sense? Investigators even claim that behind the walls of Unimed, Serge was running the belief that children with Down syndrome and autism could have been dictators in their past life. It goes without saying how dangerous this belief system is, but just imagine for a minute that one of the members, a follower of Unimed, what would happen if they had a child with a disability? The parent's mind of that child, sorry, I'm trying not to lead with too much emotion on this video, but this parent's mind could be poisoned into believing that their child had done something in the past. Something bad, something with ill will, something that karma didn't agree on.
Try and capture a person and refuse to allow them to examine the nature of what it is that they believe.
But I just sit back and I'm like, well, this is where a dangerous level of resentment comes from. And then when you think about a child possibly being in that position because of a person's teachings, it just gets you angry. But here's the thing, Unimed wasn't just teaching people belief systems. Oh no. Because you see, court findings accepted that some of the hands-on healing sessions that Serge conducted himself, it involved intentional, indecent touching of clients. So despite how horrific all of this sounds already, sadly, it does get worse. So in the New South Wales Supreme Court defamation trial, Benhayon versus Rocket 2018, the jury accepted as substantially true that there were reasonable grounds to believe Serge had an indecent interest in young girls, would engage in inappropriate behaviour with children, and had caused young girls to stay at his property unaccompanied. What is absolutely diabolical as well is that the New South Wales Child Protection Directive actually noted that a caseworker had included in a child's improvement plan, management plan, the teachings of Unimed. Now, I couldn't actually find information on why this child was on a care plan, and to be honest, I don't think it's important in the slightest. I don't think it changes the fact that a child was told to go to Unimed by a caseworker. And I guess I'm not the only one that feels this way, because after this incident, child protection authorities put out a directive that no child should ever be referred to universal medicine. And when you start talking about how far the reach of this organisation actually went, it's far. They had a lot of reach. There were communications that were released between a Unimed follower who was also a police officer and the organisation, and these communications were discussing how the police officer could actually coordinate a way to get a critic of Unimed in trouble. They were looking for ways to get this critic charged, and that is scary. But I suppose the big question is now, well, where is Unimed today? Well, Unimed still is operating today and is predominantly based in the New South Wales area, but they've got a very strong foothold in the United Kingdom as well. And Serge is still regarded as the spiritual leader of universal medicine, and he's still releasing books, hosts lectures and workshops while releasing content, while denying any wrongdoing and denying the claims that universal medicine is a cult. Number 3. The 12 tribes. So where did the 12 tribes come from? Well, in 1972, in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a man named Albert Eugene Sprigg Jr., who was a school teacher at the time, decided to stop teaching because he believed that he had received a message from God. This man became convinced that God had called on him to restore the early Christian belief as he saw it. So Spriggs went out and he created the 12 tribes, which was a bit of a hybrid between New Testament communal living with Old Testament disciplinary foundations. And Spriggs' message was quite simple in its teachings, you see. He believed that churches had now become corrupt and any true believers should disband from standard society, a corrupt society. Now, as this group started to grow larger and larger, Albert started to demand more structure. So the model of the 12 tribes was created, and the model centered on the fact that all money should be pooled up within the community. All properties are shared and there should be no private work. All career paths should be within the community. All the children will be raised communal and there will be a strict hierarchy. Husbands lead the household, women will submit to husbands, and children will obey. So this tribe, it started to grow, and it started to grow through friendly conversations that would occur at the tribe's cafes that they owned, and through giving people free meals and then moving into Bible study and Bible discussion. On paper, it appears that there was some love bombing taking place, which leads me to mention one of the group's main sources of income and recruitment was their chain of yellow deli cafes. So how is this alleged cult from Tennessee related to Australia? Well, you see, in the late 1990s, the 12 tribes actually arrived in Australia. They started to establish communities in Katoomba, in Picton, in Biggar, and throughout the Blue Mountains of New South Wales, and the dynamic that came across was the exact same. The model was the exact same. So how is it that this Christian commune in regional New South Wales, how is it that it became one of the country's most controversial Christian movements? Well, a lot of that stems on the belief system that the 12 tribes harbour about how children should be brought up.
It's a whack, whack, whack. It's just enough to get their attention, really.
Because you see, inside this community, discipline isn't optional, it's doctrine. Well, you see, this group believed that children were born with a sinful nature and that discipline, it wasn't just expected, but it was spiritually necessary for these children. And this group, they would often cite biblical passages from Proverbs, and they would reference the rod a lot. Now, former members of the 12 tribes, not just in Australia, but international as well, they have given reference to discipline that has been passed down through the use of a wooden rod, the rod. And these punishments, they could be handed down at any time throughout the day, any point throughout the day, as many times as deemed necessary to these children. The next member came forward even stating that children could start to be disciplined at only 6 months old with the rod if the child was moving or being fidgety while getting changed.
You're changing their nappies, you need to spank them to keep them still, so they learn to respond.
Now, the 12 tribes, they deny abuse and they state that their discipline is biblical and controlled. But you see, there's still a lot more that dances around this group, because in 2020, New South Wales police officers, well, they came in and they started executing search warrants to any properties that were linked to the 12 tribes. This was known as Strike Force Nunagai. So these officers, they came in and they started to search rural compounds because of allegations of stillbirths that were linked to the community. And during this investigation, police came in and they started to actually physically dig up sections of dirt on the property looking for. It's important to note that no public criminal charges were laid down to any members of the 12 tribes because of this investigation. Former members of this group have also alleged to strict isolation tactics.
I was 23 and I was desperately wondering, who the heck am I? And I found it in a big way, like really big way.
Where members must shut off any communication with extended families, they must cut ties with any former members, and they must abide to the tightly controlled gender roles within the community. But you see, the 12 tribes, they reject the term cult. They believe that they are a Christian community living their life according to scripture. A lot of ex-members as well have come forward stating that they were denied any outside medical treatments. So if something had occurred where they needed outside medicine or outside treatment, they could be denied unless one of the elders of the 12 tribes gave their blessing.
Seeking outside medical help within the tribes was frowned upon. You were an elder,
Yeah.
so when people were ill,
Yeah.
what was your role?
As an elder and a shepherd, you would go and you would find out if there was anything in them that they needed to get out.
There's also been claims in Australia and international media that within the 12 tribes, children are forced to work at a very young age. They are forced to have input and work out on the farms that are owned by the 12 tribes at a very, very young age. But when the 12 tribes were questioned on this, they denied any exploitation whatsoever, and they claim that physical work is part of family life and spiritual growth. But despite multiple years of controversy, allegations, and police investigations, the 12 tribes, they still continue to operate today. Their community still exists, and their doctrine has not changed whatsoever. Their belief in strict biblical discipline remains. The Yellow Deli still serves customers and can be found in New South Wales. And the group, the 12 tribes, they still deny the term cult. Oh, sorry, 1 minute. Hello? You're gonna comp me a free breakfast? Eggs Benny? That, my friend, is an offer too hard to refuse. Yes!